imagining that the side government's world of fantasy exists and all vigilantes are perfectly moral beings who do everything for the justice and the right of humankind. Even if this is true, we still, on side opposition, believe that vigilantism is wrong. Meanwhile, my partner will take a look into the real world. You'll see that his points speak from a realistic standpoint where vigilantes are not always morally equipped. My first point will be that accepting this resolution will be an admission of defeat to the government. I'll be following that up with my second point. Vigilantes are mostly untrained. Later, my partner will be talking about how opening the door to vigilantes doesn't only stop with the good kind of vigilantes. And finally, the democratic lawmaking process and how vigilantes tend to make split-second decisions. Side government believes that, we cannot trust our own system that we've created.
You say that vigilantes are not morally equipped to make decisions, but people in general are not morally equipped, and the government is made up of people. So what's to say they're morally equipped to make decisions for all the rest?
For my points here, I'm going to be assuming that the vigilantes are morally equipped. The government here is essentially telling its people, we are unable to defend you, so you must defend yourself as the people. Now, us on side opposition believe that this will just simply lead to a decline in confidence in the government.
But wouldn't you agree that the government says that every time that the police commit an act of brutality? Isn't that just a more honest interpretation of their actions?
Yes, we do definitely agree with you that the police is not perfect and that there are flaws within the policing system.
Sure.
Train the police to make sure they're able to catch the right people, not at this time. Vigilantes may accidentally attack and punish an innocent person, but has that government thought about that? Vigilantes won't respect people's rights and freedom. We have a charter of rights and freedoms in our constitution, and how can side opposition or how can us as a government let these people abandon the rights and freedoms that we so try to uphold? I've told you that, one, accepting this resolution would be an admission of defeat for the government. And two, vigilantes are mostly untrained. And this is why side opposition firmly believe this resolution cannot stand.
Ladies and gentlemen, today you've heard side opposition defend our system of policing and our judiciary and allude to the fact that while not perfect, our system is a pretty good one, the best that we have. The government's position is that we can do better. Ladies and gentlemen, the driving force behind all human organizations is safety. Keeping citizens safe is the fundamental goal of all democratic governments. Vigilantism is an exercise in power, and that fills the void when the government lacks the power or fails to use its power to protect the citizens. We'll have to convince you that the government is fully capable of living up to this social contract to protect us. For my side to win, we will have to prove that this is not always the case, and that there are times when vigilantes can fill in the gaps created by a faltering system. The side opposition has vigilantism runs counter to justice and to safety, and that there are police trained for the purpose of keeping us safe, and as long as we conform to the parameters of the rules and the justice system, then our goals will be met. But if we really have safety and justice in mind, we have to acknowledge that sometimes vigilantes got it right and the system has got it wrong. Just to automatically defer to a faulty system that runs counter to delivery of justice, to simply declare it's the best system we have is not true. Vigilantes shines a flashlight on the glaring holes in our system, and you cannot boast about the system till it works for everybody.
Pui,
Yes?
what would you say to the person who is wrongly done by a vigilante and ends up suffering from the injuries sustained from a vigilante attack?
I'd say that vigilante is fully aware of the consequences of their action, that they know that they're engaging in an illegal or extra legal action that might lead to prosecution, and they're willing to take this chance. For example, the creep catchers of Canada, they go online to lure child predators and pretending to be somebody that they're not in order to mitigate this child predator problem. They're filling in a gap where the police are failing. There's just simply not enough police resources to do that job, so that the average citizen, yes.
What would you say to the people of Ottawa who had a whole horde of vigilantes in trucks descend upon their peaceful city earlier this year?
Well, I would say that the reason that happened is because those vigilantes are shining a big spotlight on a problem or an area where the government is lacking. And so I think vigilantism, as we defined it, as an extra legal act and not necessarily an illegal act. And so when the vigilantes are acting and they're pushing in the same direction as the laws, and so they might step over across the boundaries of what's legal, but they're moving in the same direction. So those protests in Ottawa are going to draw attention to problems in our system that now can get rectified. Moving on to my first point. Today, I'm going to be talking about how vigilantism can be justified when it is exercised as a form of crime prevention. In the Arab Spring, natural instinct of the people, when there was a void of power and the governments were fell, natural instinct of the people was to band together to create citizen-run barricades, checkpoints, protect businesses, create safe passages for ambulances and emergency vehicles. The natural instinct was to do whatever was necessary to be safe. That's what vigilantism is. It's just striving to do what we need the most. If the instruments of the state power do not exceed the private capacities to do a job, and the government ceases to rule, and private power becomes the last resort of maintaining the social system.
Don't you think that condoning vigilantism will take away from the good messages of Martin Luther King in terms of peaceful protesting and doing things without resorting to potential violence?
I think if we were living in a vacuum, in a perfect world or utopian society, those messages would be more resonant. But the fact is, the world is a murky place. There's a lot of gray area. It's not a clean and neat and cut and paste. So because it's a messy world, the system that we have cannot protect us all, and we need people, private citizens, to rise up and fill the void where the government falls short. Besides the fact that we have state-sanctioned vigilantism, ladies and gentlemen, for the reasons I've stated, and my partner stated before me, we believe that vigilantism indeed can be justified legally and otherwise in some cases. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, side government presents a fantasy world, a perfect world, where every vigilante has the best interests of the people at heart, of the marginalized at heart, of the vulnerable at heart, and wouldn't hurt an innocent fly. But Mr. Speaker, we on side opposition live in the real world. We know the true face of vigilantism, just like the people of Ottawa do after what they experienced earlier this year. And because side opposition stands for the rule of law instead of the rule of the gun, we are so proud to oppose today's resolution. My partner in his speech talked about even if vigilantes have the right intentions at heart, this is still a bad resolution. But in my speech, I will be arguing that in fact, most vigilantes do not have the right interests at heart. And my two arguments will be that when you open the door to some vigilantes, you open the door to all, and that the democratic lawmaking process is the best system we have to ensure that the laws are the best they can be, not through violent vigilantism. But before I get into my arguments and my constructive case, I want to respond to a couple of the arguments that was made by the second speaker for the government. First of all, Mr. Speaker, my honorable opponent argued that we on side opposition have to prove that the government can always keep people safe as our burden. But this is not true. We accept that government is imperfect, but all we need to prove is that the governments that we have are better, that they are closer to being perfect than is a government or a society run by vigilantism. We only have to prove that it is better to have the system we have than to switch to a system run by vigilantes. That is the burden we have to prove. Yes.
Are you aware that when the people of Colombia fell under the stranglehold of the narco empire of Pablo Escobar, the only way the government could overcome this threat to turn to vigilante group called Los Pepes, that's what brought this narco terrorist down, which in turn made people safe?
The government brings up one extreme example of a government that was basically run by vigilantes themselves to try and make their case. That is one extreme cherry-picked example that cannot displace the vast majority of historical examples. Not to mention that this resolution only applies for countries with a functioning judicial system, and I don't think that Colombia under Pablo Escobar had a very good functioning judicial system. Moving into my constructive case, My first argument is that when you open the door to some vigilantes, you open the door to all. It simply isn't possible to selectively say we like some vigilantes when we like their cause. We don't like other vigilantes when we don't like their cause. Yes, you would seem to disagree.
Laws are misused and abused to justify human rights violations all the time. So by your logic, we have to get rid of laws as well, because sometimes we would have to accept bad laws as legitimate as well.
Mr. Speaker, if there are bad laws, people have a way to deal with that. They can vote, they can call their member of parliament, and they can try and change the system. But what can you do if a vigilante is pointing a gun at you and you don't like the cause that they're supporting? You can't vote out the local vigilante. You can't vote out the bully. The only way to deal with that system is to buy a bigger gun and become a vigilante yourself. That is the ultimate conclusion of side government's case. But you would disagree.
Well, what would you say to the person who's subject to an unfair interrogation at the hands of the police?
I would say to that person that they have rights in this country and they can go to court and they can have those rights upheld. When was the last time someone went to court to have their rights upheld because the vigilantes or the criminals didn't uphold their rights? It doesn't happen because the criminals don't follow the law. Government follows the law, and that is the better system. I want to make some headway now on my constructive case. When we open the door to some vigilantes, we open the door to all. It simply isn't possible to say we like some but not others. If you support any vigilantes, then you are giving legitimacy to the rule of the gun. And so don't be surprised when a gang of truckers takes over your city because they believe they have the right cause. Or don't be surprised when a gang of autocratic hooligans and misfit racists take over the Capitol building because they think they have the right cause. That is the ultimate outcome of legitimizing vigilantes, and that is what the government is proposing in this resolution. But there is a better system, ladies and gentlemen, for dealing with injustices. It's called the rule of law. It's called democratic government. Why should we have to grab guns, go on the streets, and try to affect change that way, when we can go into the streets with clipboards, pencils, and paper, knock on doors, sign petitions, and try and change the way that the democratic government implements its policies? That is the better system for affecting change. And because, Mr. Speaker, we support the rule of law and not the rule of the gun, side opposition is proud to oppose this resolution. Thank you very much.
How wonderful it would be to live in the world that side opposition has proposed to us today, where the answer to all of our problems, to stopping all of the autocratic hooligans, is simply the rule of law. But ladies and gentlemen, today we tell you that the same autocratic hooligans with whom side opposition seems to be so concerned are the same ones who they are trusting to enforce this rule of law. We know that historically this has not worked. We know it's not working right now, and we see absolutely no reason to believe that it is going to work in the future. And so for all of these reasons, we're very, very proud to propose on side government today. So the first point that side opposition has raised for you is this idea that vigilantism is a way for the government to say that they can't handle the judicial problems that are being raised in our society. And we say, good. The government should admit that, because quite frankly, it is ill-equipped to handle the problems that our society is facing right now. It is doing a horrendous job treating issues of equity, a horrendous job dealing with very pressing crises like racial injustice, environmental injustice. And so the sooner that they admit that they are ill-equipped to handle it, the better. It's only from that position that we can see real change. And if vigilantism is the key to achieving that, then by all means, we want vigilantes. They are concerned about the possibility of untrained people enforcing the law. We ask you, who's enforcing the law right now? We would tell you incredibly untrained people, people who have only been in police college for a matter of weeks. And we also tell you that they are disproportionately of just one small group. And so we think that a much better, more well-versed group of people, simply through a facet diversity, will be better equipped to enforce the law. And then finally, they give you this idea of rule of law, that people can simply vote their way out of these problems. We tell you that this is hugely unrealistic, and Frankly, if it was possible, it would have happened already. And so because we need recourse for people who don't have access to the ballot box, for people who are repeatedly barred from it, we are so very proud to propose vigilantism as the solution.
Well done.
I'm sorry, but
Well done. Thank you.
Imaginary
well
shake
done,
hand.
well done, well done.
That was weird.
Woo.
That was so
Well
weird.
done.
Who are these people who've come to watch us? I recognize
These are
Isabella.
students. These are students. This is Isabella, and that is Adam Wu. We have Arthur Han and Fred Zhu. These are all our students. Thanks for joining, guys.
Hi guys. I think I might be having an issue with my alt space. I can
Hello?
only
Can you
see
hear me?
Emma.
you and
Hi,
Hello,
Emma.
Isabella. I can hear you.
But listen, thank you very much. I'm gonna put together a highlight reel, and I'm gonna show some of this stuff in class again for anyone who missed it. But unfortunately, I have to run. I got an uncle living on the other side of town. I gotta deliver something to him tonight and try to get back here at a decent hour. You guys feel free to stay and explore the Rhetorical Fortress, talk to each other, but I have to take my leave. I'm very sorry.
Good job, everyone.
Jason?
Good job, Megan. Good job, Sterling.
all right. Oh, great job, guys.
Did you manage to record that?
See you, I guess, Sunday again, Saturday, Sterling.
Yes. Yes. Sounds good.
See you,
All
Sarah.
right,
See you
All right, just
tomorrow.
to send you whatever you got then,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
Okay. Cool. 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 See you on Sunday. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Yep.